Hi everyone, welcome back to our video on social inequalities. In this video, I want to talk about inequalities of sex and gender and sexual orientation. Let me start with a story. This father and boy were involved in an automobile accident. The father had some cuts and bruises, but he wasn't hurt too much. The son, however, was hurt quite bad. An ambulance was called, came to the scene of the accident, picks up the boy and takes him to the local hospital. Upon arrival at the hospital, the boy is wheeled into the emergency room and the doctor on staff looks down and says, "Oh my God, that's my son." And the question is, who is the doctor? Now, the most common response provided to that question is, it's the father. But it's not the father because he stayed at the scene of the accident. Other common responses include God, brother, or some other male figure. The doctor is his mother. And perhaps the reason that we have a problem coming up with who the doctor is because within our society and culture, doctors are more often than not males. Okay? Well, that's an example of how prejudice can become very subtle in our thinking. Let's look at a few definitions. Sex refers to the biological distinction between females and males. Sex is inherited. Gender refers to the personal traits and social positions that members of a society attach to being female or male, also known as gender binary. Gender is learned, masculinity and femininity. Non-binary is a spectrum of gender identities that are not exclusively masculine or feminine, identities that are outside the gender binary. Biologically, men and women differ in limited ways, such as height, weight, strength, with neither one naturally superior. Culture typically exacerbates the differences because many people want males and females to be different. Let's look at a few more definitions. Gender stratification refers to the unequal distribution of wealth, power, and privilege between men and women. Sexism is the belief that one sex is innately superior to the other. Misogyny is dislike of, contempt for, or ingrained prejudice against women. Let's look at women's power in global perspective. Matriarchy refers to a form of social organization in which females dominate males, which has, throughout the history of humans, been very, very rare. Patriarchy refers to a form of social organization in which males dominate females. A UN study was conducted and showed that the highest social standing for women would be seen in countries like Switzerland, Denmark, and the Netherlands, while the lowest social standing for women was seen in countries like Mali, Niger, and Yemen. On that study, the United States was ranked number 43. I want to talk about a very disturbing practice that takes place in certain parts of the world, and it's called female genital mutilation, which is a ritual cutting or removal of some or all of the external female genitalia. And I have a short video that I would like to show you about FGM.
What exactly is FGM? FGM is the non-medical practice that intentionally removes female genital organs. Often, girls are cut when they are still very young, in some cases under the age of 5. FGM is practiced all over the world, but is predominant in 30 countries. In some of those countries, high prevalence rates mean that nearly all girls still experience FGM. There are 4 types of FGM. Type 1, clitoridectomy, meaning removal of the clitoris. Type 2, excision, meaning removal of the clitoris and the labia. Type 3, infibulation, meaning a narrowing of the vaginal opening, sometimes through stitching. Type 4, all other harmful procedures not covered by the first 3, including pricking, stretching, scraping, or even using acid to mutilate parts of the genitalia. Once more for everyone in the back, it is non-medical and has 0 health benefits, but it can cause a lot of other things. Severe bleeding, complications in childbirth, problems urinating, problems menstruating, problems having sex, mental health issues, shock, death. More than 200 million women have undergone female genital mutilation, FGM, with 3 million more at risk every single year. FGM is violence against women and girls, child abuse, sexual assault. Often it's about controlling female sexuality, a tradition to prepare a woman for marriage, allegedly to purify them for their husbands. Sometimes it's done to girls because it was done to their mothers, as a rite of passage or a coming-of-age ritual, or even without much of an explanation at all. It's a cycle of social pressure that's hard to shake, but not impossible. Actually, many people in these countries want the practice to end forever. And though it is often shrouded in secrecy, many survivors told Global Citizen they wanted to talk about the reality of FGM so that they can help end it altogether. We should probably mention too, FGM is not a religious exercise. It happens in Christian, Muslim, and Jewish communities, but there is nothing in any of their holy books that teaches it. Basically, FGM is violence against girls. So how can we end FGM forever? Education, teaching doctors and teachers what signs to look for and how to respond sensitively. Cultural intervention, survivors telling their stories to their own communities. Laws and policies, enforcing consequences when FGM is carried out and making policy changes that further deter the practice. The time to end FGM is now.
Very sad. How did women become a minority? Thousands of years ago, women were more equal to men, according to research. So let's take a look at 2 theories, childbirth and social experiences. According to Lerner and Friedel, because women get pregnant and care for children, that limits their ability to assume other tasks, such as searching for food and interacting with other tribes that are defined as dominant activities. Warfare and physical strength. Anthropologist Marvin Harris's theory shows that women on average are 85% as large and only 2/3 as strong as men. The stronger males went off to war and women became sexual rewards to those who returned victorious. Let's take a look at some issues related to women in the workforce. And on the left-hand side of your screen, you can see that of the top 500 companies in the US, only 37 have a female CEO. On the right-hand side of your screen, you see that in the 116th Congress of the US, there are a record number of women serving. However, they are still the minority. There are only 106 women in the House of Representatives, which is 24%. There are only 25 women in the Senate, which is only 25%. So even though women make up a majority of people in the US, about 51%, they are still highly underrepresented in US politics. Women are concentrated into several occupations, and these occupations tend to pay less than male-dominated occupations. And you can see a list of some of the highest concentration of women on your screen. The gender pay gap. Women earn, on average, about 80% of what men earn. And when women finish their day at work, They often go home to what's called a second shift. And you can see on your screen some of the work that women do when they return home from their full-time jobs. Research shows that only between 20 and 30% of women keep their last name in marriage, which brings us to the issue of feminism. Feminism is the support of social equality for women and men in opposition to patriarchy and sexism. There have been several waves of feminism over the last 200 years in the US. This has been an attempt to fight back against all of the injustices against women. Let's turn our attention to sexual orientation, defined as a person's romantic and emotional attraction to one another. Also, we have the concept of homophobia, which is the discomfort over close personal interaction with people thought to be gay, lesbian, or bisexual. It is very hard to determine, but research suggests that approximately 4 to 5% of the US population is gay. There are 4 sexual orientations that you can see on your screen: heterosexuality, bisexuality, asexuality, and homosexuality. Why are people homosexual? Well, there are 2 competing theories. One is based on biology, that there is a gay gene, and the other one is based in nurture or society, that is somehow learned behavior. The gay rights movement started in the middle of the 20th century. Much progress has been accomplished. For example, marriage equality came to the US in June of 2015. You can also see that the attitudes of young people, especially college students, has changed significantly and become much more accepting of people that are part of the LGBT community. I want you to consider that in 1977, Florida had a law that banned homosexuals from adopting children. And it was only in 2010 that that law was struck down. Marriage equality came to the United States due to a Supreme Court case on June 26, 2015. Much still needs to be done. U.S. federal law protects individuals from discrimination or harassment based on the following 9 protected classes: sex, race, age, disability, color, creed, national origin, religion, or genetic information. However, there is currently no federal law that expressly prohibits employment discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation and gender identity. So thank you so much for joining me, and I hope to see you back soon. Bye-bye.